course, University of Calicut. This speech is titled Art, Truth and Politics. It is the speech by Harold Pinter. Harold Pinter is a very famous dramatist, screenwriter, director, and actor. And he was given the Nobel Prize for Literature in 2005. And this is the Nobel Prize acceptance speech of Harold Pinter. And in this speech, Pinter speaks like a citizen rather than a dramatist. And Pinter expresses his anger and protest against the foreign policies of United States of America and United Kingdom in this essay, Art, Truth and Politics. As we read this essay, we understand that, or rather, as we listen to Harold Pinter, we understand that Pinter is so sad about, so worried and upset about the cruelty of United States of America in many parts of the world. Pinter very, very vividly points out United States of America's cruelty in Nicaragua, Iraq, then Guantanamo Bay. Before going for a very detailed analysis of the speech, let us look at the career of Harold Pinter. Harold Pinter was born on 10th October 1930 in London, and we know he is, of course, a very important playwright, screenwriter, director, and actor. And he won a lot of fame, international fame, as one of the most complex and challenging post-World War II dramatists. His plays are noted for their use of understatement, small talk, reticence, and silence. And through understatement, small talk, silence, he conveys the very feelings of the characters. And for his great contribution to literature and the world, he was given the Nobel Prize in the year 2005. He was in fact son of a Jewish tailor. He grew up in London's East End in a working class area. He studied acting at the Royal Academy of Dramatic Art in 1948, but left after 2 terms to join a repertory company as a professional actor. Pinter toured Ireland and England with various acting companies, appearing under the name David Barron in provincial repertory theatres until 1959. After 1956, he began to write for the stage. The Room was produced in 1957 and The Dumb Waiter, produced in 1959, are his first 2 plays, and they are just one-act plays that establish the mood of comic menace that was to figure largely in his later works, and these plays are known as theater of absurd on one side, so also menace plays. Now let us just start our discussion of the essay Art, Truth and Politics. We have the very biographical details. Pinter also wrote a lot of wonderful plays like The Birthday Party, The Homecoming, The Servant, The Go Between. Then he wrote the screenplay for the great novel of John Fowles, The French Lieutenant's Woman. He also wrote screenplays for The Trial 1993 and Sloth 2007. And now he was a great playwright, and he also directed nearly 50 productions for stage, theater, and screen. And he is given the Nobel Prize for Literature in 2005, and he was also given the great French Legion d'Honneur in 2007. And later, of course, he suffered from liver cancer, and he was bedridden for some time, and he died on 24th December 2008. Now let us look at the very speech of Harold Pinter that is prescribed for the third semester students of the colleges of the University of Calicut. This is, as I told you, the Nobel Lecture of Harold Pinter. He was not well, and he was in the hospital, and he videotaped this Nobel lecture, and it was projected on three large screens at Swedish Academy on the evening of 7th December 2005. He spoke in a very passionate, truthful, and courageous way, and his lecture has been widely distributed by print and online media and has provoked much commentary and debate, with some commentators accusing Pinter of anti Americanism. And it is absolutely true. He is very vitriolically, very powerfully criticizing the United States policies. And in his Nobel lecture, Pinter criticizes the policies and practices of American administrations. So, exam point of view, if the students are asked to write an essay, what is the speech, art, truth, and politics about? It's about the cruel and one-sided foreign policies of United States of America, and the very bad and profit-minded practices of American administration in many parts of the world. Pinter has spoken out tirelessly and powerfully against the war in Iraq and the destruction of American imperialism in the Balkans. The Balkan Peninsula is the geographical area in southern Europe, Albania, Bosnia, and Herzegovina, Central America, and elsewhere that preceded it. Harold Pinter utilized his acceptance speech to extend and develop that struggle, giving a very hot criticism of the entire course of United States foreign policies in the period since Second World War, and blaming Britain for its role as Washington's junior partner and accomplice. He called Bush and Blair, George Bush and Tony Blair, the administrators, the president and the premier of the two countries, war criminals, and made an impassioned call for mass political resistance to militarism and war. Now let us just discuss the very speech of Harold Pinter, Art, Truth, and Politics. So, the very speech, Pinter begins with a quotation from what he wrote in 1958. Quotation: there are no hard distinctions between what is real and what is unreal, nor between what is true and what is false. A thing is not necessarily either true or false. It can be both true and false. So he tells in the beginning of the speech that we cannot just distinguish between truth and unreal things, right? It is not easy to distinguish between the real and the unreal, what is true and false. It's it's not easy to distinguish. And having said that, it is very difficult to distinguish between the unreal and the real, the true and the false. He says that there can be both truth and false. All right, that is about truth in art. And in the second passage, he says that I believe that these assertions still make sense and do still apply to exploration of reality through art. So, as a writer, I stand by them, and but as a citizen, I cannot. As a citizen, I must ask what's true, what is false. So, in literature, there isn't. It's very difficult to distinguish between art and truth, or rather, the unreal and the real. But maybe in reality, in real life, as a citizen, I have to ask what is true, what is false. So often, literature is philosophical, and there can be multiple meanings in literature. And Harold Pinter says that it is rather difficult to distinguish between real and unreal, truth and false. But as a citizen, he has to speak like a real human being, speak like maybe, of course, he has to speak the truth. And when he speaks like a citizen, like maybe a champion of democracy, a champion of the very rights of ordinary people, he says, I may have to criticize, or I have to criticize the foreign policies of United States of America. Okay, now we move forward. Truth in drama is forever elusive. Elusive means difficult to explain. Truth in drama is forever elusive. You never quite find it, but the search for it is compulsive. The search is clearly what drives the endeavor. The search is your task. More often than not, you stumble upon the truth in the dark, colliding with it just glimpsing an image or a shape which seems to correspond to the truth, often without realizing that you have done so. So it's very difficult to project, or it is very difficult to point out truth in drama. But the real truth is that there never is any such thing as one truth to be found in dramatic art. There are many. So in drama, there isn't just one truth. There are many truths in drama. And when we see the many truths in drama, maybe we may not be able to distinguish between the unreal and the real, the truth and the false. These truths challenge each other, rebound from, recoil from each other, reflect each other, ignore each other, tease each other, are blind to each other. Sometimes you feel you have the truth of a moment in your hand, then it slips through your fingers and is lost. So, in the very beginning of the speech, Harold Pinter tells truth in art, and he says that truth in art is very, very difficult to explain. Maybe we have some truth in literature, in art, okay, but we cannot hold the truth. It is very difficult, right? And there are many truths in literature, and all the truth just reflect in literature, in drama. Sometimes we cannot just uh, have a grasp of all the truth, and maybe all the truth is blind to each other. That is difficulty in uh, drama or literature. And now, in the later passages of subsequent passages of the speech, Art, Truth, and Politics, Pinter tells us, I'm not speaking uh, like maybe an artist or a dramatist. I'm just going to speak like an individual, like a citizen. So, language in art remains a highly ambiguous transaction, a quicksand, a trampoline, a frozen pool, which might give way under you, the author, at any time. So, in fact, we because of this reason, we do not have uh, one reality or truth in literature or art. The uh, reality, the truth in literature and art is, of course, uh, difficult to just point out, right? Because it is rather truth in drama is just elusive, right? Because there are different truths in drama. And now, after just talking to us about it is very difficult for an artist to project truth, he tells us about political theater. There are different types of theater, and political theater is a kind of theater that comments on political issues. And he says that in political theater, maybe the dramatist has to be on the side of the characters, right? So he tells about the features of political theater in the last paragraph of page number 51. Political theater presents an entirely different set of problems. Sermonizing has to be avoided at all costs. Objectivity is essential. The characters must be allowed to breathe their own air. The author cannot confine and constrict them to satisfy his own taste or disposition or prejudice. He must be prepared to approach them from a variety of angles, from a full and uninhibited range of perspectives, take them by surprise, perhaps occasionally, but nevertheless give them the freedom to go which way they will. This does not always work. A political satire, of course, adheres to none of these precepts. In fact, does precisely the opposite, which is its proper function. Okay, so here Pinter tells that maybe in political drama, the characters must be given more freedom and the characters must be permitted to speak out their own opinions, but he says that in political satire, okay, maybe it is not possible. It is not possible. So Harold Pinter tells us about literature. He speaks about truth in literature. He speaks about truth in drama, and he speaks about truth in um, the very political theater, and subsequently he comes to the very point, right? So I do not want to, in this speech, in this Nobel Prize acceptance speech, I'm not just speaking like a dramatist, or I'm not speaking like a writer, but I want to speak like a real citizen who is committed to democracy, the needs of the people, the problems of the people. And in the subsequent passages, all the pages, Harold Pinter is criticizing the policies of United States of America. And now let us come to the um, all the very criticism, right? So initial criticism of Harold Pinter is on the U.S. policy in Iraq. So United States of truth in politics, truth in international politics is often um, it is rather biased, or rather it is just in favor of truth is created by the powerful, and he tells us about how truth was created for United States of America in all the important international affairs. And here he says that United States of America invaded Iraq, and America had an explanation for the invasion of Iraq, and he tells us what was America's explanation for the attack of Iraq. And afterwards, he says that what America said as an excuse for or as a reason for the invasion of America was just false. So, as every single person here knows, he is addressing all the important guests in that Nobel Prize acceptance speech. As every single person here knows, the justification for the invasion of Iraq was that Saddam Hussein possessed highly dangerous body of weapons of mass destruction, some of which could be fired in 45 minutes, bringing about appalling devastation. We are assured that was true. It was not true. We were told that Iraq had a relationship with Al Qaeda and shared responsibility for the atrocity in New York of September 11, 2001. We were assured that this was true. It was not true. We were told that Iraq threatened the security of the world. We were assured it was true. It was not true. So, right now, uh, Harold Pinter tells us what is truth in politics, international politics, and he tells us that United States of America, a powerful, one of the powerful, most powerful nations of the world, just created truth in a very biased way. So their reason for the invasion of Iraq was that Saddam Hussein possessed very dangerous weapons, right? And he also said that Saddam Hussein had some nexus with Al Qaeda, the militant extremist Islamist organization founded by Osama bin Laden. But Pinter says that both this is not truth. This was a truth created by United States of America for uh, acquiring power in the Middle East. Okay, so he criticizes US here. This is the first powerful criticism of Harold Pinter in the Nobel Prize acceptance speech. Now we move forward. We understand the truth is something entirely different. The truth is to do with how the United States understands its role in the world and how it chooses to embody it. So this is a very, very powerful criticism of US and UK by Harold Pinter. Okay, so what America says is not truth. This is not truth. Truth is just the opposite of what they say. But before I come back to present, I would like to look at the recent past, by which I mean United States foreign policy since the end of Second World War. I believe it is obligatory upon us to subject this period to at least some kind of even limited scrutiny, which is all that time will allow here. So, in the second subsequent part of the speech, Harold Pinter is just scrutinizing the very deeds of America, the very foreign policy of America from the right Second World War. That is, of course, 1939 to 1945, and 5 is the period of Second World War. So, what United States of America did to the nations of the world from 1939 to 1945 is illustrated in the subsequent part, and America is blamed by Harold Pinter. Everyone knows what happened in the Soviet Union and throughout Eastern Europe during the post war period. The systematic brutality, the widespread atrocities, the ruthless suppression of the independent thought, all this has been fully documented and verified. So, Harold Pinter says that America just was very rude to all the countries in uh, East Europe, especially to the Soviet Union, and America was just spreading brutality and atrocity and suppression of the very poor citizens of those countries, right? And now he continues, and he just blames the foreign policies of United States of America. And now we have to remember what was the real foreign policy of United States of America. And that foreign policy, which is never approved by Pinter, is mentioned here. And in this passage, Harold Pinter says that America had a foreign policy which was to just to suppress, to oppress, to um, cause a very slow damage to the enemy country. We'll just read that from page number 53. Direct invasion of a sovereign state has never been America's favored method. In the main, it has preferred what it has described as low intensity conflict. Low intensity conflict means that thousands of people die, but slower than if you dropped a bomb on them in one fell swoop. So, America's foreign policy is low intensity conflict. Low intensity conflict is a kind of very slow attack on the enemy country. It is never a direct invasion. What will America do is America will, of course, impose a lot of sanctions on the country and slow attack in which no immediate distraction is taking place, but as a result of sanctioning, imposing lot of sanctions, financial and political, and no, the country cannot export or import, and the finance suffers, and there is going to be great poverty in the country. So this is, of course, low intensity conflict that America is just scattering in the enemy countries. It means that you infect the heart of the country, that you establish a harmful growth and watch the gangrene bloom. When the populace has been subdued or beaten to death, the same thing. And your own friends, the military and the great corporations sit comfortably in power. You go before the camera and say that democracy has prevailed. This was a commonplace in US policy, foreign policy in the years to which I refer. So ever since Second World War, America was attacking a lot of innocent countries, and he said that yeah, America was always a champion of democracy, but it was the opposite. America was never a champion of democracy. America was just exploiting a lot of poor nations and just imposing sanctions on them, just exploiting poor people. And now Harold Pinter mentions the very atrocity and brutality and cruelty of US on many countries. So initially he speaks what America did in the uh, Republic of Nicaragua in Central America. So what US you did in Nicaragua was, of course, a country which had a lot of internal problems, right? And uh, there was, of course, the left-wing political party and the right-wing political party, and in Nicaragua, and we understand that the left-wing political party was rather democratic. It was, of course, the left wing, that is the Sandinistas of Nicaragua, who were rather democratic and uh, people friendly, normal, ordinary people friendly. But there was the right wing political party, that is, of course, the Contras. And what was United States of foreign policy? United States foreign policy. United States of America wanted to or supported the Contras. Contras are extreme right-wing militant political organization, and the Contras were always just very cruel to ordinary people. They were always against democratic values, and America was supporting the contrasts in Nicaragua as a result of the support of United States of America to the contrasts. Poor people suffered a lot, and a lot of people were the contrast just attacked and disturbed and devastated. Maybe many organizations, many democratic organizations, democratic establishments in Nicaragua. So the very one-sided, profit-minded foreign policy of US in Nicaragua is just blamed here, criticized here in page number 53, 54, and 55. The tragedy of Nicaragua was a highly significant case. I choose to offer it here as a potent example of America's view of its role in the world, both then and now. I was present at a meeting at the US Embassy in London in the late 1980s. The United States Congress was about to decide whether to give more money to the Contras in their campaign against the state of Nicaragua. So here, there is of course a meeting at the U.S. Embassy in London, and Harold Pinter is attending the meeting. And what is going to be decided in this meeting is whether the Contras must be given more money. And we have to keep in mind the Contras will just devastate democracy in Nicaragua. So if United States of America is helping the Contras, it means democracy will not continue in Nicaragua. So United States of America must not give aid or financial aid to the Contras. But we will understand United States of America is funding the Contras so that there will be problem in Nicaragua, so that poor people will have, or rather, America can of course just control uh, the country, that is Republic of Nicaragua in Central America. America doesn't want, because of this policy, we understand that democracy will not continue in United States of America. No, in Nicaragua, and we understand that US, although they just boast that they are the champions of democracy, they are never champions of democracy. They are just very cruel. Their foreign policy is always against the uh, democratic countries of the world, especially the Nicaraguan democracy. The United States Congress was about to decide whether to give more money to the Contras in their campaign against the state of Nicaragua. I was a member of the delegation speaking on behalf of Nicaragua, but the most important member of this delegation was a Father John Metcalf. The leader of the US body was Raymond Sades, then number two to the ambassador, later ambassador himself. Father Metcalf said, Sir, I am in charge of a parish in the north of Nicaragua. My parishioners built a school, a health center, a cultural center. We have lived in peace. A few months ago, a Contra force attacked the parish. They destroyed everything: the school, the health center, the cultural center. They raped nurses and teachers, slaughtered doctors in the most brutal manner. They, the Contras, behave like savages. Please demand that the US government withdraw its support from this shocking terrorist activity. So these are the words of Father Metcalf from Nicaragua. And Father Metcalf says that now that United States of America is helping the Contras, the all the uh, charity organizations, all the uh, service that is, of course, done to poor people has been just demolished by, devastated by the Contras. Say, for example, Pinter tells us, or rather, Pinter tells that Father Metcalf, parish priest of Nicaragua, witnessed a lot of atrocities spread by the Contras. The Contras attacked the parish, destroyed the school, the health center, the cultural center. They raped the nurses and teachers and slaughtered doctors. And this was very, very brutal. And all this is because US helped the Contras. And Father Metcalf is of the opinion that the Contras must not be funded anymore. And what was the reaction of Raymond Sage, the uh, representative of the US government? Raymond Sage, we can see the very US foreign policy. He said he was a good person to the Americans. He had a great reputation, and this reputation is, of course, creator reputation. Raymond Sage had a very good reputation as a national, responsible, and highly sophisticated man. He was greatly respected in diplomatic circles. He listened, paused, and then spoke with some gravity. Father, he said, let me tell you something. In war, innocent people always suffer. There was a frozen silence. We stared at him. He did not flinch. He did not flinch means he when he said that he didn't have any kind of panic or fear. So what does it mean? Raymond Sage, the ambassador or the representative of United States of America, is just justifying death and cruelty during war. He is never against war. He is never against brutality. He is never against the death of innocent people in war. He's championing war. He's supporting war, and he says that okay, in war, poor people will die. That means they are going to support the Contras, the right-wing terrorist political organization of Nicaragua. They don't want the democracy in Nicaragua. And finally, somebody said, but in this case, innocent people were the victims of gruesome atrocities subsided by USA government, one among many. If Congress allows the Contras more money, further atrocities of this kind will take place. It is not the case. Is your government not therefore guilty of supporting acts of murder and destruction upon the citizens of a sovereign state? And this is a very powerful criticism of the United States of America. Other uh, participants in this meeting say that America is just supporting acts of murder and destruction upon the citizens of a sovereign state like Nicaragua. And the American ambassador, Raymond Sachs, was never uh, moved. He was not moved at all. He was imperturbable, calm and quiet. He still continued to hold on to the very cruel policy of US. And he said, I don't agree that the facts as presented support your assertions. He said, as we were, yeah. So he said, I don't agree that the facts as presented support your assertions, right? This is not true. America always says that America is a champion of democracy. But what they did in Nicaragua, what they did in Iraq, what they did in many other countries, especially in Chile and all, was against democracy. As we were living in the embassy, a United States official told me that he enjoyed my place. I did not reply. And now we just continue. As we continue, we come to page number 55. And in page number 55, we can see some of the cruelties of United States of America. What maybe the very one-sided, profit-minded foreign policy of United States of America, and as a result of their help to the Contras, so much of destruction was spreading in Nicaragua, and that is just mentioned here in page number 55. I shouldn't remind you that at the time, President Reagan is the 40th US president. Okay, so I should remind you that at the time, President Reagan made the following statement: the Contras are the most equivalent of our founding fathers. So from this, we understand United States of America, the president of US is supporting the Contras, but Contras are very cruel, and we have the financial aid to the Contras. So from this it is very obvious that America is against democracy. The United States supported the brutal Somoza dictatorship in Nicaragua for over 40 years. So we have Anastasia Somoza, the dictator in Nicaragua, and 40 years the very cruel of the dictator Anastasia Somoza continued in Nicaragua. That was just because of US support to Anastasia Somoza. The Nicaraguan people, led by the Sandinistas, overthrew this regime in 1979, a breathtaking popular revolution. And now we have, of course, a very clear political picture of the democratic country, Nicaragua. On one side, we have the Sandinistas. Sandinistas are left-wing Nicaraguan political organization. The other side, we have the Contras. They are, of course, the right-wing militant political organization. And besides, we also have the dictator Anastasia Somoza. So the country, the poor people, ordinary people were suffering under Anastasia Somoza, and because the left-wing political political party, that is the Sandinistas, just revolted against Anastasia Somoza, there was uh, the rule of the government of the Sandinistas. And the Sandinistas may not be very perfect, but they did a lot of good things. And here Pinter speaks about the administration of the Sandinistas. The Sandinistas were imperfect. They possessed their fair share of arrogance, and their political philosophy contained a number of contradictory elements. But they were intelligent, rational, and civilized. They set out to establish a stable, decent, pluralistic society. Death penalty was abolished. So, what are the contributions of Sandinistas? Death penalty was abolished. Hundreds of thousands of poverty-stricken peasants were brought back from the dead. Over 100,000 families were given title to land. 2,000 schools were built. A quiet, remarkable literacy campaign reduced illiteracy in the country to less than one seventh. Free education was established and a free health service. Infant mortality was reduced by a third. Polio was eradicated. So, these are all the very uh, good policies of the Sandinistas. So Sandinistas are democratic, or rather, they want people to have peace and progress and welfare. Want, of course, development there. So Pinter is of the opinion that the Sandinistas must be helped, the Contras must not be helped. And now, having said some of the very good policies of the Sandinistas, Pinter speaks to us about the um, cruelty done later when United States of America helps the Contras. That is last paragraph in page number 55. The United States finally brought down the Sandinista government. This is a very bad interference of America. The United States finally brought down the Sandinista government. It took some years and considerable resistance, but relentless economic persecution and 30,000 dead finally undermined the spirit of the Nicaraguan people. They were exhausted and poverty stricken once again. The casinos moved back into the country. Free health and free education were over. Big business returned with vengeance. Democracy had prevailed. So at last, United States of America just um, just controlled Nicaragua, just took away the power from the Sandinistas. As a result of that, capitalism controlled the Nicaragua, and America said it was, of course, an exploitation of the poor people, and America said that democracy had prevailed. But this policy was by no means restricted to Central America. It was conducted throughout the world. It was never ending, and it is as if it never happened. So, very, very powerful criticism of Pinter. So, what America did in Nicaragua continued and it spread to all the other countries all over the world, not only just Central America. The United States supported and in many cases engendered every right wing military dictatorship in the world after the end of the Second World War. I refer to Indonesia, Greece, Uruguay, Brazil, Paraguay, Haiti, Turkey, the Philippines, Guatemala, El Salvador, and of course Chile. The horror the United States inflicted upon Chile in 1973 can never be purged or purified and can never be forgiven. So United States of America is generating atrocities in many countries, countries like yeah, all these countries, and the cruelty that America is, the horror that America is inflicting or inflicted in Chile in 1973 is so horrible and so deadly. And what happened as a result of this cruel foreign policy of US? Hundreds of thousands of deaths took place throughout these countries. The answer, did they take place, all this cruelty? And are they in all cases attributable to US foreign policy? The answer is yes, they did take place and they are attributable to American foreign policy, but you wouldn't know that. So Pinter says that there were so many deaths, there were so many distractions, there were so many calamities, and all this is because of the US foreign policy. All this is because of US foreign policy. And now Harold Pinter is drawing our attention to what America does in Guantanamo Bay. Guantanamo Bay is a U.S. detention facility on the Guantanamo Bay naval base in southeastern Cuba. And in Guantanamo Bay, a lot of Muslim militants, like the US say that they are all Muslim militants, right? So there were a lot of people from Muslim countries, and US said that they are Muslim militants, and they said that US said that they are suspected terrorists, and they said that they are captured from Afghanistan and Iraq and other Muslim countries, right? And let us understand the cruelty of America to all these um, so-called prisoners or so-called militants and terrorists in Guantanamo Bay in Chile. All right, or rather, not in Chile, in Cuba, southeastern Cuba. All right, it is a naval base in Cuba, not Chile, it is in Cuba. So it's very, very painful what American soldiers do to people in uh, prisoners in Guantanamo Bay naval base. Let us understand. We are in page number 56 and 57. What happened to our moral sensibility? Did we ever have any? Did America have, has America a moral sensibility? That is what Pinter is asking. America says that no, Pinter says that America has no morality. It has no moral sensibility. What do these words mean? Do they refer to a term very rarely employed these days. Conscience. Okay, conscience is the voice of your heart, the conscience of goodness, right? And when we listen to our conscience, we understand whether we do good or right, good or evil. And when we look at what America did, we understand that America never had a conscience, right? America only had a conscience of devil or evil, a conscience to do not only with our own acts, but to do with our shared responsibility in the acts of others. Is all this dead? Look at Guantanamo Bay. Hundreds of people detained without charge for over 3 years. Innocent people, they haven't done anything wrong. There isn't any allegation on them. Hundreds of people detained without charge of for over 3 years with no legal representation or due process, technically detained forever. This totally illegitimate structure is maintained in defiance of Geneva Convention. So right now, Harold Pinter says that whatever United States of America does, whatever George W. Bush does, is against the Geneva Convention. Geneva Convention are rules that apply only in times of armed conflict or war and seek to protect people who are no longer taking part in hostilities, right? So, as per Geneva Convention, no innocent men must be imprisoned or just punished. But what America did in Cuba, in the naval base, that is, of course, Guantanamo Bay, was against morality, against right conscience. It's not only tolerated but hardly thought about by what called the international community. This criminal outrage is being committed by a country which declares itself to be the leader of free world. America says that America is the leader of the free world. Do we think about the inhabitants of Guantanamo Bay? What does the media say about them? They pop up occasionally, a small item on page 6. They have been consigned to a no man's land from which indeed they may never return. So here, Pinter is very, very angry and he is protesting against US policies and he says that America is never good. Whatever America does is against democracy, against morality, against conscience. And America, because it's powerful, America will always say that we are champions of democracy, we are champions of liberation, independence, freedom. But Pinter says, no, it is not true. Okay, what has the British Foreign Secretary said about this? Nothing. So now the question is about, of course, what America does in Guantanamo Bay. Okay, so did Britain speak something against this kind of cruelty of United States of America? And Pinter says that Britain is also supporting United States of America. All right. So now let us listen to the very powerful criticism of Harold Pinter. No niceties in these force feeding residents. So this is the kind of force feeding of the prisoners in Guantanamo Bay. At present, many are on hunger strike, prisoners in Guantanamo Bay, being force fed, including British residents. No niceties in these force feeding procedures, no sedative or an anesthetic, just a tube stuck up your nose and into your throat. You vomit blood. So this is the cruelty of American soldiers to prisoners in Guantanamo Bay naval base. This is torture. What has the British Foreign Secretary said about this? Nothing. What has the British Prime Minister said about this? Nothing. Why not? because the United States has said to criticize our conduct in Guantanamo Bay constitutes an unfriendly act. So Britain doesn't want to criticize America. Britain is always complying with agreeing with US cruelty. You are either with us or against us. So Blair shuts up. So right now, George Bush is US president is asking British Premier Tony Blair to support US, and Tony Blair shuts up, doesn't speak anything against atrocities of United States of America. The invasion of Iraq was bandit act, very very bad act. Bandit, it is just looting and plundering a sovereign country. Invasion of Iraq was bandit act, an act of blatant state terrorism, demonstrating absolute contempt for the concept of international law. The invasion was an arbitrary military action inspired by a series of lies upon lies, gross manipulation of the media and therefore of the public. So America was just manipulating the media. They do cruelty in Afghanistan, in Iraq, in Nicaragua, in Chile, Indonesia, and many other countries, and they just manipulate the media. They manipulate the media and they say that they are great democracy. Theirs is a great democracy. They are champions of democracy, etc. An act intended to consolidate American military and economic control of the Middle East, masquerading as a last resort. Masquerading is disguising. America is always disguised as maybe good, a champion of democracy, but America is never a champion of democracy, according to Harold Pinter. A formidable assertion of military force responsible for the death of and mutilation of thousands and thousands of innocent people. Okay, so America is just spreading cruelty, destruction, havoc in Middle East, and America is responsible for death and mutilation of thousands of people in Afghanistan, Iraq, Cuba, Nicaragua, Chile, right? Chile and Vietnam, many other countries, according to Pinter. We have brought torture, cluster bombs, depleted uranium, innumerable acts of random murder, misery, degradation, and death to the Iraqi people, and call it bringing freedom and democracy to the Middle East. Criticism of America. Pinter doesn't approve American interference in Iraq. How many people do you have to kill before you qualify to be described as a mass murderer and a war criminal? Very, very blunt and open attack of US by Pinter. Bush, the American president, is a war criminal. Okay, how many people do you have to kill before you qualify to be described as a mass murderer? America is a mass murderer. Bush is a mass murderer, a war criminal. How many do you want to kill? 100,000? More than enough. I would have thought, therefore, it is just the Bush and Blair be arraigned before the International Criminal Court of Justice. So Tony Blair and Bush must be just impeached. They must be prosecuted. All right, they are international. They must be brought before the International Criminal Court of Justice because they are mass murderers and war criminals. But Bush has been clever. He has not ratified the International Criminal Court of Justice. Therefore, if any American soldier or, for that matter, politician finds himself in the dock, Bush has warned that he will send in the Marines. But Tony Blair has ratified the court and is therefore available for prosecution. We can let the court have his address if they are interested. It is number 10 Downing Street, London. And now Pinter says that we cannot just prosecute Bush because he is very clever and he has not approved the International Criminal Court of Justice, and hence we cannot bring him in front of the International Criminal Court of Justice. But Tony Blair has ratified the international, approved and signed the International Criminal Court of Justice, so he can be brought to the International Criminal Court. That is what Pinter says. Now, Harold Pinter continues his list of the atrocities of America. Death in this context is irrelevant. Both Bush and Blair placed death well away on the back burner. Back burner is postpone consideration for or action on, right? So both Bush and Blair placed death well away on the back burner. They always go supporting death. At least 100,000 Iraqis were killed by American bombs and missiles before the Iraqi reinsurgency began. These people are of no moment. Their deaths don't exist. So America is responsible for more than 100,000 Iraqis' death. These people are of no moment. They are all dead and gone. Their deaths don't exist. They are blank. They are not even recorded as being dead. We don't do body counts, said the American General Tommy Franks. And America is using a lot of destructive weapon, bombs, and other very destructive weapons. And they say they don't count bodies. That means they don't care for the number of deaths. They kill everybody. Early in the invasion, there was a photograph published on the front page of British newspapers of Tony Blair kissing the cheek of a little Iraqi boy. Grateful child, said the caption. A few days later, there was a story and photograph on an inside page of another 4-year-old boy with no arms. His family had been blown up by a missile. He was the only survivor. When do I get my arms back? He asked. The story was dropped. Well, Tony Blair wasn't holding him in his arms, nor the body of any other mutilated child, nor the body of any bloody corpse. Blood is dirty. It dirties your shirt and tie, and when you are making a sincere speech on television. So this is again another very powerful criticism of Pinter on US and UK. So US and UK publish the wonderful photos of the presidents in the media. The media of the world is controlled by US and UK. Tony Blair is just spreading a photograph in which he is kissing a smart Iraqi boy dressed, well dressed and clean and all. But when there are thousands of Iraqi boys, young innocent babies and boys who are mutilated, bleeding, dying, and who have lost all their parents and dear ones and all. Okay, Blair doesn't hold them, hug them, and say, I will protect you. So these people, they are always selfish and they just spread pictures in which they are in their wonderful dress. And this is, of course, Pinter's criticism of international leaders like Bush and Tony Blair. The 2000 American dead are an embarrassment. The 2000 American dead are an embarrassment. They are transported to their graves in the dark. Funnels are unobtrusive, out of harm's way. The mutilated rot in their beds, some for the rest of their lives. So the dead and the mutilated both rot in different kinds of graves, right? Some Americans also died, and the death of the American soldiers is also because of the the foreign policy. The United States now occupies 702 military installations throughout the world in 132 countries, with the honorable exception of Sweden, of course. So Sweden never support United States of America. Otherwise, America has a lot of support from most of the countries of the world, especially 132 countries support United States of America, and America has military installations in 702 places in the world, and United States possesses 8,000 active and operational nuclear warheads. 2,000 are on hair trigger alert. So 2,000 nuclear weapons of America can be just activated any moment, and that is the very power of destructive, cruel power of United States of America. And uh, Pinter is criticizing this craze for armament of UK and US, especially United States of America. It's developing new systems of nuclear force known as bunker busters. The British, ever cooperative, are intending to replace their own nuclear missile Trident. So this is again the craze of US and UK for more powerful, destructive, deadly weapons, and US and UK always support each other. All right, and now we move on to the next passage in page number 60, in which Harold Pinter is criticizing the very American foreign policy and British foreign policy. And here we have a very wonderful reality, that is all these international leaders, the President of America, the Premier of UK, they always give wonderful speeches in many forums, international forums, right? So how do they speak such wonderful words? All these wonderful speeches are written by their um, ambassadors or their secretaries, or rather their staff, right? So they have a lot of people to write speeches for them. And Harold Pinter, as a writer, is just criticizing the very eloquent speeches of America. They always say they are champions of democracy. They are always champions of independence, but they are very cruel. Many thousands, if not millions, of people in the United States itself are demonstrably sickened, shamed, and angered by their government's actions. But as things stand, they are not a coherent political force yet. But the anxiety, uncertainty, and fear which we can see growing daily in the United States is unlikely to diminish, right? So people in US, people in the other countries are anxious and uncertain and afraid. All this is because of US. I know that President Bush has many extremely competent speech writers, but I would like to volunteer for the job myself. I propose the following short address, which he can make on television to the nation. I see him grave, hair carefully combed, serious, winning, sincere, often beguiling, sometimes employing a wry smile, curiously attractive, a man's man. So this is the very beguiling smile of US President, beguiling smile of British Premier, British Prime Minister. They speak wonderful speeches because there are a lot of speech writers for them, and Harold Pinter wants to write a speech like this for them, and he wants them to speak like this. This is the speech Pinter would write for Bush, American president. Pinter would write for Blair, the uh, prime minister of United Kingdom, Great Britain. God is good, God is great, God is good, my God is good. Bin Laden's God is bad. His is a bad God. Saddam's God was bad, except he didn't have one. He was a barbarian. We are not barbarians. We don't chop people's heads off. We believe in freedom. So does God. I'm not a barbarian. I'm not democratically elected leader. I am the democratically elected leader of a freedom loving democracy. We are a compassionate society. We give compassionate electrocution and compassionate lethal injection. We are a great nation. I'm not a 11 dictator. He is. I'm not a barbarian. He is. So the he is, of course, the reference to Saddam Hussein, and he is. They are. They all are. I possess moral authority. You see this first. This is my moral authority, and don't you forget it. So, very, very cynical and critical and ironic words of Harold Pinter, in which Harold Pinter is very, very blatantly attacking uh, United States of America. They say they are champions of democracy, but they do all cruelty. A writer's life is a highly vulnerable, almost naked activity. So Harold Pinter says, yeah, a writer will have to speak out reality, truth, but when you speak truth, you will be vulnerable. You may be attacked, you may be harmed, but Harold Pinter doesn't care for because he's on bed. He is about to die and he's sure about that. And when he is about to die, he hasn't any fear. He very, very, very confidently and very powerfully criticizes US policies, and he says that America has never been uh, a, a champion of democracy. America has always been very diabolic and very, very brutal, and I will never support United States of America, says Harold Pinter. I believe that despite the enormous odds which exist, unflinching, unswerving, fierce intellectual determination as citizens to define the real truth of our lives and our societies is a crucial obligation which develops upon us all. It is in fact mandatory. Pinter says we have to uh, show the world real truth. Otherwise, we are being very, very uncommitted. Okay, we must just define the truth. We must demonstrate the truth. Otherwise, it is shameful just mentioning the fact that I am a writer. If such a determination is not embodied in our political vision, we have no hope of restoring what is so nearly lost to us, the dignity of man. So, the dignity of man has been lost to humanity, lost to the world because of the cruelty of US, because the cruelty of UK. And now we must just be champions of morality. We should listen to our conscience and we should end cruelty to the innocent, sovereign countries of the world. And with that, the speech of Harold Pinter comes to an end. We'll look at the questions and answers. We are in page number 63. Let us look at the questions and answers. First question: Harold Pinter received Nobel Prize in the year 2005. According to Pinter, dash has to be avoided at all cost in political theater. Sermonizing, according to Pinter, sermonizing has to be avoided at all cost in political theater. Next question. The leader of the US body at the meeting in London was Raymond Sades. Raymond Sades. You can see the answer. Next question. Um, answer the following questions in one or two sentences. Why does Pinter say that truth in drama is forever elusive? We never find truth in drama. Okay, there is no truth in drama, and that is the reason why Pinter says that truth in drama is elusive, right? We never find truth in drama. There isn't just one truth, there are many truths, and because of that reason, there is. Pinter says that truth is forever elusive. Next question: what was the justification for the invasion of Iraq? Um, US said that Saddam Hussein possessed dangerous weapons, and he also said that some of the weapons could be used any moment, all on a sudden, and because of that reason, he said that Saddam Hussein must be just stopped. He must be just captured, and that is his U.S. justification for invasion of Iraq. What do you learn by low intensity conflict? Low intensity conflict refers to the American policy that leads to slow death of the citizens, especially it's the foreign policy of US in Nicaragua and Chile and of course countries like Afghan, Iraq, and many other countries all over the world, just not acting not taking any military action all on a sudden, but imposing sanctions and leading to the very economic destruction of the country. Next question. What do you what do you mean by, yeah, who were the Sandinistas? The Sandinistas are the left wing, they are the left wing Nicaraguan political movement, and the Sandinistas just revolted against the dictatorship of Anastasia Somoza, who was always held by United States of America. And because they just overthrew Anastasia Somoza, the Sandinistas could just they are of course left wing, and they believe in democratic principles, and because they just came to power for some time, there were a lot of pro friendly, rather very good decisions and very good policies in Nicaragua. Say, for example, the Sandinistas were more democratic, and they had a lot of good policies, right? Otherwise, the condition of people in Nicaragua would have been very bad, right? So we have the answer in page number uh, 60, 55, right? So now, next question. Answer the following questions in a paragraph. Pinter's criticism of the American foreign policy in Nicaragua. We have the answer in page number 53 and 54. So, all right. Direct invasion of sovereign state has never, in fact, been America's favored method. All right. Low intensity conflict means that thousands of people die, but slower than if you dropped a bomb. All right. Then the United States Congress was about to decide. So that is US just helping the Contras, the right-wing militant political organization. Okay. So American foreign policy in Nicaragua was against the people, against democracy all the time. It was always helping the right-wing Contras. Pinter's anti-Americanism. So Pinter, uh, in this Nobel Prize acceptance speech, is criticizing United States of America. Number one, he criticizes United States of America for attacking Iraq, for just capturing Saddam Hussein. He also just